came down that fiery day, that fiery September day in New York City. I was actually working in Cleveland at the time, working in my hometown. I was covering the Cleveland Browns as a radio beat reporter for the flagship station in Cleveland, WTAM 1100. And it's interesting because for those of you maybe not familiar with the NFL schedule, Tuesday is the off day in the National Football League. So the teams play on Sunday. They come in on Monday, rehash what happened on Sunday, and then the players are off on Tuesdays. It's also tends to be a community day for NFL teams where their players get out into the community and meet the public, touch the people that cheer them on every Sunday. And so Monday was kind of like our Friday night for those of us that cover the team. So there's an event that a lot of NFL teams have. I think most of them have it. It's called the Taste of the NFL. And what happens in every NFL city, and it's generally the first Monday and after the beginning of the regular season, so this is likely happening, this event is likely happening in NFL cities across the country today, is restaurants from those cities will come out to the stadium and you can go and sample their dishes. You can buy a ticket to the event. You can go sample these dishes. Usually there's players from every team. A lot of the NFL alumni will attend this event. And so me and several of my colleagues that covered the Browns and some of my friends had gone to the Taste of the NFL the night before on Monday night. And so I was actually asleep Tuesday morning because it was the off day. I didn't have to go to work. And I remember getting a call from one of my best friends from college. He lives in Atlanta. Woke me out of a deep slumber, probably about 9:30 Eastern time, 9:45. And his first words to me, like, "Can you believe this?" And I'm like, I was sleeping. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, our country's under attack. And I'm like, "Bro, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, my God, you're not watching TV?" I was like, "Dude, I'm sleeping. What's going on?" He's like, "Turn on the TV." And so I turned on the TV, and I literally sat in front of the TV for the entire day, just watching the coverage. And at the top, you heard the great tones of the late news anchor Peter Jennings from ABC, who covered that event. That was a piece I put together from back when I was working in Cleveland, and some of the sounds that were on our air that day. So courtesy to WTAM 1100 for that audio. Just an unbelievable day that this country will never forget. And I particularly would like to love to hear today from young people. I mean, obviously, I was 33 years old at the time that happened. And I've always wondered from young people how that event is taught now in schools. How, if you're in that age group of, because I have a niece who was born 1 month later. And if you'll remember 3 years ago, one of the common things during the pandemic was, these are all the 9/11 kids. These are the kids that didn't get to graduate in 2020 were kids that were born in or around 9/11. So now their lives have two distinct events that they're tied to. Because I remember my niece was born a month later, and then she graduated from high school in 2020. So I'm curious for those folks, young people today, how is that taught now? How do you learn about 9/11? 520-848-1290, 520-848-1290. is the number to get in on the program. We can talk about that today. We obviously have a lot to get to in sports. Jed Fish spoke today about the Wildcats' loss at Mississippi State by a score of 31-24. I think the most interesting thing that came out of that was that we did not see a lot of Martell Irby in the second half, and that was not because he was injured. It was because of some things personnel-wise that Mississippi State was doing, Jed Fish said, but it was also because they felt like maybe Martell's performance was not as consistent as they would like it to be. So you'll hear Jed Fish talk about that. We'll get into the United States Tennis Open, which took place in New York this weekend. Gil Gross is going to join us. He's been on our program before to talk tennis. Roger Federer. Man, what a champion. And wasn't it cool to see him wearing that number 24 jacket after he took that title? I mean, that was cool.
It was cool to see him wear the number 24. But I'm going to be honest with you, DK. When it comes to the U.S. Open, he's not the storyline that I took away from that event. Mm-hmm. Coco was the one.
Yeah.
19 years old.
Yeah.
19-year-old wins a major championship. That's a big deal, man.
Youngest American champion since Serena won it. Coco Gauff, man, she played well last week to win that champion. I mean, yeah, two great stories there from the United States Open. Brett Fair from the Daily Star, he is the sports editor at the Arizona Daily Star, is going to join us in studio today. We'll talk football with him. Lamont Hunley is our Arizona insider. He was down in Starkville, Mississippi. We'll hear about his trip there and what he saw. Just an interesting weekend. We'll recap. Dragon Ball is going to present his first Dragon Ball's football headlines. Want to tease anything there, Dragon Ball?
The AFC North is the division of the injured and the beaten and the broken after the first week is the big takeaway that I took from that. But the other one is the lights are not bright in New York City right now.
No.
The lights
are
I don't
quiet.
know.
They could be bright tonight if Aaron A-Rod comes to play, the new incarnation of A-Rod. And the Jets, maybe it'll get a little bit brighter, but it was ugly last night. That's for sure.
Ugly is the best way of putting it.
Last night.
Ugly all around, though, in the first week of the NFL season. A lot of offenses were clearly still adjusting with that week off from the preseason, the regular season. Not a lot of high-scoring games the first week.
A finely tuned-eared caller just said it was not Roger Federer that won the U.S. Open. It was Novak Djokovic.
I'm sorry. Did I say Roger Federer?
I don't know. But I
did say Roger Federer.
I think we all knew that.
Yes.
But just in case
Novak, my fault.
Listeners
My bad.
didn't know that.
Novak Djokovic, the Joker. The fourth member of our team is joining us right now. Her name is Cricket.
Hello.
Cricket, we're talking about, obviously, this is the 22nd anniversary of 9/11.
Yes.
Where were you?
I was helping get my younger brother and sister ready for school.
Okay. How much younger are they?
My sister 11 years younger and my brother 13 years younger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you're like the babysitting older sister.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you remember about that day? And kind of so were you working at that time? Were you in the business at that time?
Yes, I was. That was just what a day that the whole world just completely changed. It was just horrible.
Yeah.
My brother and sister, I think a little, definitely my brother, too young to really grasp what was happening. My sister might have kind of understood it, but just what a day. What about you? Where were you at?
I was in Cleveland working in radio, and I was saying to the guys I was off that day, so I was like asleep because I had gone out the night before. And my friend from college woke me up. He called me and said, "Are you watching?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sleeping. What's going on?" He's like, "You need to turn the TV on. The nation is under attack." And I'm like, Wait, what? Mm-hmm. And we were in Cleveland. It was interesting because of the crash that happened in Pittsburgh. There was actually some pretty intense fighter aircraft stuff going on above our city.
Oh, wow.
That we got wind of. And so we were like not sure what that was about, and you couldn't get a lot of information. We just remember that people were going outside and saying there's fighter jets like
everywhere
in and around circling above like that part of the, because obviously Cleveland is, quote, you could say a border city because it's on, it's Cleveland and then Canada. So I think a lot of the cities that were maybe on the northern lakes were, where you were close to a border, there was a lot of, military aircraft presence that day.
Air traffic.
So, yeah, I remember that day. Yeah. Dragon Ball, where were you?
I was getting ready for school. I think I was, if my math is right, which it usually isn't, but I want to say I was about 8 years old at the time. I was just getting ready to go into elementary school. I was leading my brothers and sisters in, and it was a very, very jarring moment just because I saw it initially on the news, and then I had to leave, and then, it was the quietest day because none of us really understood what was going on, obviously. But we got through. We finished the day, and then eventually we started learning some more about what happened, and now it's just something that they go ahead and teach in history books now.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear later how they teach that now to the kids that have come along since then. All right, we are talking our memories of 9/11 as well as a whole lot more today. It is a Monday, though, and a lot of you are working, so we want to make sure we get you home safely with your traffic and your weather every 20 minutes on the fives. Here's Cricket.
From the O'Reilly Chevrolet Traffic Center, it's Wildcats Radio 1290 Traffic and Weather Together. Reported collisions, flowing wells in Prince Road, Speedway in Tucson Boulevard and Speedway, Pima and Craycroft, also Speedway and Grande Clearing, and a collision up north in Oro Valley at Oracle and Hardy. Collision reported in the southbound lanes, southbound Oracle at Hardy. 78 overnight tonight, a 25% chance of rain tomorrow, and 101 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 Traffic and Weather Together.
on the field for the Wildcats this upcoming Saturday.
Stooks should be cleared to go. Practice on Tuesday. We're expecting him to be able to play on Saturday. Wyatt, we're expecting him to be able to play on Saturday. So as of today, my expectation is that Polito, Wyatt, Stooks, Irby not for injury purposes, but those other three should all be cleared to play on Saturday if they have no setbacks at Tuesday or Wednesday's practice.
The Wildcats preparing for their final non-conference game. The team has also learned that they will be kicking off their Pac-12 opener next week, and that will be against Stanford at 4 p.m. Arizona time. The NBA will be looking to get stricter with teams as they rest stars during the upcoming season, as the rules and punishments for resting players during national televised and in-season tournament games will result in stricter penalties, according to sources with the NBA's competition committee. The committee has recommended a plan that would give the league office authority for greater oversight over discipline from missed games and fine teams up to over $1 million. The Board of Governors is expected to go ahead and approve that plan on Wednesday. That's your 2020 Sports Update. We'll have more for you in the next 20 on Wildcats Radio 1290.
DK on the Sports Tip on Wildcats Radio 1290.
All right, 578, I should say 520. I haven't done that in about a month plus. I was talking about Cleveland. That's why it came back to my mind. 520-848-1290. 520-848-1290 is the number to get in on the program today. Great weekend in sports. It always is one of the first Sundays in September. We have the beginning of the National Football League season. We also have the end of the U.S. Open competition in New York City. Let's talk a little bit about that. And we are joined by Gil Gross, who is with the Tennis Channel. And Gil was in the Big Apple for the weekend, getting a chance to see all of the artistry on the courts as it went down. And Gil, first of all, give me your overall thoughts on this 2-week tournament and what you saw there.
David, great to be on with you again. And I'll just say the energy around the U.S. Open. This was my third year covering it in person. Actually, before then, I have a long history with the tournament. I was a ball boy there, and then before that, I was a fan. It just gets better and better and better when it comes to what the options are for the fan experience and the energy that the crowds bring. It's another record attendance, which seems to happen every year. And I guess the 2 weeks, it'll be extremely memorable for Coco Gauff and the title run that she had, which I'm sure we'll get into in more depth. A tennis tournament, there's so much that happens over the course of the 2 weeks. There's always plenty of great highlights, and this U.S. Open was no exception.
All right, so let's talk about Coco Gauff to begin that. 19 years old, winning her first major, youngest American to win since Serena. How has her, she's been close before, but how has her game grown in your eyes that she was able to finally get over that hump and win?
Oh, it's grown enormously. Before this summer, Coco Gauff had never won a tournament above the 250 level. And for those who don't know, it goes 250, 500, 1,000, and then slam or major. Coco had only won 250s. She had two titles to her name. Well, she started off this summer by winning a 500 in Washington, D.C., so that was her biggest title of her career. Then, a couple weeks later, she won the Western and Southern Open in Cincinnati. That is a 1,000-level tournament. And then she comes to the U.S. Open and wins the first major. Yes, she did make the final of Roland Garros in 2022, but she was not close to winning that final. She got blown out by Iga Swiatek. So the strides that she's made in the last 2 months were somewhat unimaginable, just because of how much she's accomplished for the first time in a very, very short period.
When you look at, and we talked about this, Gil, when you were in studio with us, and we talked about kind of where we are with American men's tennis. And obviously we have had a string of champions now with add Coco Gauff to the list, of Serena Williams and Venus Williams and others on the women's side. Why do you think the women's American tennis side is ahead of the men's tennis side?
It's always a difficult question to answer. I like to think that culturally, the way we support women's tennis in the United States may be superior to some of the European nations. I think we've been blessed with some really, really great athletes on the women's side that are generational athletes who probably would have excelled in whatever sport they went into. You talk about the Williams sisters. You look at Coco Gauff, who's really just raw athleticism. If you were to do a combine, David, I think she's the most impressive pure athlete in all of women's tennis. And, it's all about kind of making tennis attractive enough from the USDA's perspective where young athletes are choosing tennis. And look, at the U.S. Open, let's take it to this. The U.S. Open this year celebrated the 50th anniversary of equal prize money for men and women, which is something that in 1973, Billie Jean King was able to kind of lead the charge and accomplish for women's tennis at the U.S. Open. And since then, it took a while, but since then, the other three majors have followed. And now there's equal prize money for men and women at all three majors. That is, I think it's fair to say that in terms of earning potential, there is no better sport for young female athletes to get into at the highest level than tennis. So perhaps that helps.
Gil Gross joining us from the Tennis Channel. He was at the U.S. Open. The stars came out this weekend. Is there anybody you ever just, as somebody that covers this event, Gil, is there anybody that you're just like in awe of seeing there? I mean, it's always a boatload of folks. Obviously, there was a lot of focus on Matthew McConaughey because he was kind of sitting with the Djokovic folks yesterday. Do you ever does anybody ever blow your mind? It's like, wow, I got to see that person.
Yes. I mean, Leo DiCaprio was at the final. Do you know what the funniest parts are? And I guess I should also mention Michelle Obama, Barack Obama were there earlier in the tournament.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal as well. But the thing that always makes me laugh is when there are so many celebrities in the crowd at the U.S. Open that the TV broadcast will show one celebrity and you'll see another celebrity sitting like 3 seats over that they're not even paying any attention to. And in this case, it was, I think they were showing Celine Dion. And
oh, wow.
two seats over was Alexandra Daddario, who I recently enjoyed watching White Lotus, and she was spectacular in season 1 of White Lotus. And I was like, oh, my God, there she is. It's Alex Daddario. And they pay no attention because there are just too many to choose from.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Gil Gross from Tennis Channel is our guest here, talking a little U.S. Open on this Monday after the final. All right, men's final was yesterday. Okay, I want you to break out your true analyst hat here. Daniil Medvedev had a set point, and he did not get it done. How did you see that, and was that essentially his undoing?
Well, yeah, it was. I mean, he had plenty of chances to win the second set. It was an exceptionally tight set where Medvedev was faring much better physically than Djokovic. Novak was on wobbly legs, very fatigued from all the long rallies that were happening repeatedly, whereas Medvedev was very strong physically. The main thing that happened in that second set was Djokovic, whenever he was in trouble, could go to the serve and volley tactic. And it won him the point basically every time. When the match was over, Novak had served and volleyed 22 times, and he won 20 of the points.
Wow.
And you can really boil it down to that one tactic, which Medvedev had no answer for, that ultimately allowed Djokovic to win the second set, even when he was physically not at his best. Obviously, when you serve and volley, another benefit is you don't end up playing a long rally. You come right to the net and finish the point on ideally the third shot. The set point you were talking about was another example of a serve and volley by Novak. But in this case, Medvedev had a pretty good look at the passing shot, and it becomes a scenario where you have a player who has to guess one way or the other, like a soccer goalie on penalty kicks. Djokovic ended up anticipating that Medvedev was going to go cross court, so he positioned himself in a way where he was going to cover that shot. And Medvedev, unfortunately for him, took the passing shot cross court, giving Novak an easy volley. If Medvedev went down the line, or even if he hit a lob, he would have won the second set more than almost guaranteed.
We're joined by Gil Gross from Tennis Channel. Gil, I think a lot of people maybe didn't understand the true meaning of the number 24 jacket that Djokovic was wearing after he won the title. Obviously, that was his 24th major championship, but also it brought into play his relationship with Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, that was a really amazing touch from Novak, and he talked about after the match how when he was struggling in his career, which was over a period of time, late 2017 through early 2018, Kobe was a resource for him, a very valuable resource. And he said, we just talked about the winning mentality, the championship mentality, which Kobe Bryant was such a pioneer of and such a master of. So they had that connection, and it just kind of so happened that I think Djokovic, especially being in the United States and being at the U.S. Open, it must have dawned on him, I'm about to win 24. And what a great way it would be to kind of commemorate my relationship with Kobe Bryant, who wore number 24 with the Lakers, than to basically wear a shirt in Kobe Bryant's honor and be able to talk about that. The funny thing is, if Novak won his 24th major at Wimbledon, he would not have been able to do that because Wimbledon has a very strict dress code. You cannot put on a yellow and purple T-shirt in the trophy ceremony. So that is the one benefit for Novak winning at the U.S. Open instead of Wimbledon for him, is that he did get to honor his pal.
Gil, real quick, I want to ask you this question. Obviously, we're talking about 9/11 today, the 22nd anniversary. You're how old?
I'm 24.
So 24. So
yeah.
How did you learn about that? How did kids your age learn about 9/11 in school?
Yeah, at a very young age, especially growing up in New York, there was no, very early on, it was kind of explained that this terrible tragedy occurred in New York City, and all of these innocent people who are going about their lives and first responders who are trying to save people lost their lives on that day. And, the images are what the images are. I know that I was in daycare at the time, and I do have it seems like I kind of have the vaguest memory of being, the panic and just being kind of picked up early from, by my parents and all of that, even though I don't know if it's a real memory or something that just kind of almost came back to me later in life. It's almost hard to explain the feeling that I get when I try to remember that day. But yeah, I think definitely being a sports fan as well, and seeing how the Yankees and the Mets and the U.S. Open, these great New York events have usually taken place, and oftentimes taken place on this day. That's also one of the ways that I have always connected to 9/11 and remembered 9/11 every year is, the local teams in New York played a really large role in helping the city heal, and they continue to play a role in helping the city remember.
Gil, hey, we always appreciate you coming on and talking some tennis with us, and you get to take a long vacation till the Australian Open now?
Not exactly. It's on to Shanghai we go.
Oh, there you go. We'll have to find out a little bit more about that. Gil, hey, we appreciate you.
Thanks, David.
Gil Gross from the Tennis Channel joining us here, talking some U.S. Open tennis, getting you home every.
From the O'Reilly Chevrolet Traffic Center, it's Wildcats Radio 1290 Traffic and Weather Together. Reported collisions, Flowing Wells and Prince Road, Speedway and Tucson Boulevard, FEMA and Craycroft, southbound Oracle at Hardy, collision in Oro Valley, also clearing Valencia and Nogales Highway, Camino Seco and Broadway. A 78 overnight, a 25% chance of rain tomorrow, and 101 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together.
This report is sponsored.
Tucker team go ahead and come away with a win over Utah State with a late goal from the team's best striker in Nicole Dalen.
No score. Arizona locked up with Utah State. It's corralled by Dallin, who stays with it. Gets a foot on it, and it's in the back of the net. The goal comes in the 77th minute. Nicole Dallin breaks the scoreless tie.
She now sets her new personal high in goals scored in a season with that score, so congratulations to Nicole. Other results saw the men's golf team finish 4th out in Redmond, Washington for the Sahali Players Championship. On Saturday, volleyball sadly took another loss in 3 straight sets, this time to the Hurricanes of Miami, as the team finished up their time in Madison, Wisconsin. Michigan State football head coach Mel Tucker has been officially suspended by the university for athletic director Alan Haller announcing that Tucker is currently under investigation by the university into claims that he sexually harassed a prominent sexual assault awareness speaker when she was hired to address the team. The suspension is without pay, as Harlan Barnett will now serve as the interim head coach. That's your 2020 Sports Update. We'll have more from you next 20 on Wildcats Radio 1290.
DK on the Sports Tip on Wildcats Radio 1290.
520-848-1290. 520-848-1290 is the number to get in on the program. Our question of the day today was this: what do you remember about where you were and what you were doing on Tuesday, September the 11th, 2001? 9/11, 22nd anniversary today of 9/11. Colin checks in. Remembering it all unfold on TV as I was getting ready for school, was a sophomore in high school, spent most of the school day watching the coverage on TV or discussing it in class. It kind of reminds me of my senior year in high school when the Challenger exploded. And literally, you're watching history right before your very eyes, and then you're going into a class and you're talking about the history that you just watched. Because I don't imagine you guys, Dragon Ball, I imagine you guys were probably too young. I think you said 8 years old.
I was about 8.
Yeah, to have a discussion in class about what had just happened.
Oh, yeah, no, there was no discussion about what took place, what it was about, who was responsible, or anything else like that. That was all kind of things that my generation, or at least people that were around my age, were learning as the days were going by from the news, because the news didn't come off the TV at the time. I mean, that was 24/7 coverage, seeming like every day when you got back home from school.
Yeah, I was one of those Challenger kids because they had just procured televisions for elementary schools at the time. They thought it would be a really good idea to wheel televisions in so everybody could watch it live.
Yeah.
So we were, I don't know, 2nd grade, something like that, 3rd grade. But that was a big deal because that was right when they first started wheeling televisions in to show live. I think Asset was the name of the school program that they had at the time, but live they had never done before. It was the first time they ever did anything live, watching that Challenger explosion in real time. That was like, I want to say 2nd grade, something like that.
Wow. I'm the old man in the room. 2nd grade. Wow. Woo, man. 520-848-1290 is the number to get in on the program if you want to share your memory of 9/11. The National Football League began on Sunday. We're going to have our first edition of Dragon Ball's football headlines.
Well, hey, I'll tell you what. The NFC is the conference to watch right now, DK. Looking through the weekend that was, all the wins and losses, 3 wins for NFC East teams, 3 wins for NFC South teams, and one of those actually were the Falcons. Bijan Robinson.
How about Bijan?
Tucson's own. First catch of his career goes for a touchdown. A lot of people were kind of upset that Mr. Algier got a couple of carries in the red zone, but it clearly shows that Bijan is still going to be involved in this offense. Again, they got him touch early, and he was able to go ahead and take a score in there. But 3 teams in the NFC South, the Falcons, the Bucs, and the Saints, all win games, so it's a 3-way tie for first in the South. 3-way tie in the East, the Commanders, who beat the Cardinals, sadly. Josh Dobbs played pretty well, all things considered. It was more the offensive line, I feel like, was the big question mark for the Cardinals in that particular contest. The Eagles and the Cowboys also won their games on Sunday, including the Cowboys winning.
Wait, stop. The Cowboys also won? The Cowboys blew the damn Giants out. That was not an also won. They won big.
Yeah, all the headlines I saw were Cowboys put the league on notice.
I mean, goodness gracious, on national TV Sunday night, and you gonna get your ass kicked like that?
I mean, hey, 40-0 is not a very nice score to go ahead and walk back home in. Especially not to a division
Feel
opponent.
bad for Gary Brightwell. Oh, my goodness.
I'm starting to feel bad. I wonder what the Giants fans are saying right now. Are they asking, man, Joe Judge wouldn't have let this happen? I don't know if that'd be the case, but certainly a lot of folks in New York not happy about the situation. Then you go to the other conference in the AFC. The teams in the AFC laid so many eggs around the conference.
You mean like your Steelers?
My Steelers laid a big egg against the 49ers, but you have two divisions, DK, where only one team took home a W in their opening game. The AFC South, where the Jaguars seemingly tried to give that game away on a number of occasions, and the AFC West, the Raiders are the only team to win a game in the AFC West because the Chargers had another amazing chargering moment. And needless to say, anyone who put down money for Tua Tagovailoa to be your MVP favorite, he certainly showed that was maybe money well spent. 466 yards through the air against the Chargers in that opening day win.
Yeah.
It was
apparently people were disrespecting him, and he let them know after the game too.
Oh yeah, no, he let them know. And the sad thing is that this still technically isn't even his best performance in the NFL. It's his second highest passing performance as a quarterback for the Dolphins, and it's not even the fifth highest total in Dolphins history. Marino still holds the record of 512. There were a lot of people thinking that if the Chargers score a touchdown here, Tua's got a shot to maybe break that record on the way back, but did not happen. The Dolphins come away with arguably the most entertaining game of the early sets. And then, of course, like I said, in the AFC North right now, it is a triage unit going around right now. But before we get into that, though, some news that just broke out. The Chiefs are getting some major help back this week. Chris Jones officially ends his holdout. He is going to agree to a revised one-year deal. However, this does not add years to his deal, DK. It is the same contract he had going into his holdout, but they're just giving him extra incentives. So not sure what the holdout actually accomplished, but it wasn't necessarily a bad deal for Jones as he now gets a little bit of extra cash. And Travis Kelce expected to return from injury against the Jaguars this upcoming week. So a couple of big returns for the Chiefs this next weekend. Now going to the AFC North, the triage that I was talking about. So Steelers, Cam Hayward now on IR with a groin injury.
Ugh.
The Ravens officially lose J.K. Dobbins to a torn Achilles. They're going to try to replace him in their room. They also have their starting offensive tackle, Ronnie Staley, and guard Tyler Linderbaum are going to be week to week with other injuries. So a very big loss to the Ravens and their offense. And then now they're also saying that Jack Conklin of the Browns has torn his ACL and his MCL. He is now done for the year as well.
Yeah, that was kind of ugly when he went down.
Yeah, and then there's also the Bengals who apparently are still, Jamar Chase is still doubling down on calling your Browns the Elves in his post-game press conference. And that, I'm sure, is going to cause a lot of discussion between the next two teams. When
Them
they see
elves kicked you at 2. Them DBs for the Browns weren't playing yesterday. Let me tell you about that.
No, they were
defending.
No, they were ready for that game. They were certainly looking to get Jamar Chase's mouth sewed shut in that contest.
We finally got rid of Greedy Williams and got some DBs that could play.
And then finally, I'll go ahead and look into tonight's game. You got the Bills and the Jets. Aaron Rodgers in his first game in New York. However, one player that everyone was kind of hoping to see on the field will not be there. DeMar Hamlin, the safety for the Bills, will be a healthy scratch for the Buffalo Bills going into Monday night in the Meadowlands.
Is there anything better than NFL music? I don't think so.
Oh, no, NFL Films is a
No.
classic. You can put that on anything. And it sounds amazing.
520-848-1290 is the number to get in on the program. Okay, last week we had our first Miller Lite Pigskin Challenge. Now, this is going to be something we're going to be doing every week on Thursday. I'm going to pick a game. You're going to get to pick against me if you are the chosen one. Okay? So last week, our first chosen one was John Bailina, and he joins us once again now. The game I selected, was the Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears. And ironically enough, John Bailina is a Chicago Bears fan, so he chose the Bears, and they got their ass kicked.
To say the least.
What happened, John?
It's pretty horrible. I think I was going back and forth watching the Denver game, and then they lost too.
So Justin Fields, 24-37, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, got sacked 4 times. Was that a him problem, or is that an offensive line problem?
It sounds like a line problem to me.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
But they were actually saying he was trying to make things happen just way too long, and that's part of why he kept getting sacked.
That generally can happen. We've seen that happen on many levels with quarterbacks holding the ball too long, trying to wait for that receiver to get open, trying to scramble and see if you can get a way out and keep plays alive. Sometimes you just have to give up and take your incompletions.
Yeah, and he's got to learn to do that, I guess. So what do I do? Do I owe you a Miller Lite or what?
Yeah, well, if you want to buy me one, if you ever see me anywhere, I'll definitely will take a Miller Lite. But you don't owe me anything, John. You still are a winner. You still are a winner just for playing.
Oh, great! All right, that cheers me up a lot. Hey, I'm up here on Mount Lemon, and I just killed my first squirrel.
Oh my God! So what are you doing up there on Mount Lemon? You were up there last week when we talked to you. What are you doing up there?
I'm trying to help some guys kill a deer with their bow, and it's also
Wait, kill a deer with their bow.
Season. Yeah.
Okay. So
it's deer season.
All right. So this is like all for fun.
Well, it's yeah, pretty much.
All right.
And to put some meat on the table.
Oh. Okay. You can have that meal.
Oh, you never had venison?
Venison. What is venison?
Oh, that's deer.
Deer? No, I'm not into no.
Come on, DK.
No, that's
I'm going to
okay.
bring you a burrito someday, and you're going to go.
Oh, the
really
deer burrito.
To be fair, he's still having to come around to trying hummus.
Oh gosh,
so
no,
he hasn't
you.
done that yet either.
Oh my goodness. All right, John, we've got your information. You will be getting a prize. It won't be the $25 gift certificate, but it will be something nice for you to have some fun with on Sundays. How about that?
Table dance at TD's or something?
Easy, John. Easy, John. Thanks for playing.
Go
Bears.
DK.
Bear down, Chicago Bears. I don't know the rest of the words, but there you go. All right. We've got more coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to recap you'll hear from Bijan Robinson as well as your Arizona Cardinals. This is DK, the Sports Tip. You're listening to Wildcats Radio 1290.
From the O'Reilly Chevrolet Traffic Center, it's Wildcats Radio 1290 Traffic and Weather together. Reported collisions, Ina at I-10 reported at the Ina I-10 overpass, Valencia and Cole Road, Speedway and Tucson Boulevard, Oracle and Hardy that wreck reported in the southbound lane, southbound on Oracle at Hardy, and some slowdowns for traffic on Flowing Wells to the north of Prince Road. And weather-wise, 78 overnight, 25% chance of rain tomorrow, and 100 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 Traffic and Weather together.
This report is sponsored by Big O Tires. It's Big O's big deal event going on now. Get a $110 rebate on sets of 4 Michelin Cross Climate 2 tires, or $70 rebate on all other Michelin lines, plus an extra $70 rebate on installation of Michelin Select sets of 4. Big O Tires, the team you trust. See details at bigotires.com.
Hey Wildcat fans, it's time for some new Wildcat gear. Head to the UA bookstores to visit the latest in tailgate and game day essentials. Don't forget, there are 7 team stores inside Arizona Stadium for your last-minute fan favorites. Foam fingers, clear bags, red or white game day tees, and more. Visit shop.arizona.edu for your complete football collection. Bear down and go Cats!
Wildcats Radio 1290 is proud to support your Arizona Wildcat football team as they continue their season with another home game this Saturday at Arizona Stadium.
This week, the Cats take on UTEP. Kickoff is scheduled for 8 p.m.
To get your tickets, visit ArizonaWildcats.com or call 621-CATS. For more University of Arizona Wildcat football, including a complete schedule and link to buy tickets online, log on to khit1075.com.
1290 has earned the right to be named after the Arizona Wildcats. That's why you'll never see us skip leg day.
Haven't had a carb since 2004.
1290 is the home of the Wildcats. We are Wildcats Radio 1290.
Hi, everyone. I'm here on my computer with artificial intelligence.
entertain potential trade discussions for outfielder Mike Trout if he decides he wants out of the team. Already this offseason, the Angels have to go ahead and compete to keep Shohei Ohtani as he prepares for the winter meetings, but now it appears that should Trout request a trade, the Angels will open up their phones to see what they could get for the former MVP. That's your 2020 Sports Update. We'll have more for you in the next 20 on Wildcats Radio 1290.
Live from the CNWT.
Wait, what's the CNWT? Central Northwest Tucson, duh.
It's DK on the Sports Tip with your host, David Kelly.
Radio. Just when I thought I was out, they drug me back in.
Featuring J.W. Madden.
Don't tell me about flip-flops, man. I'm a native.
David Amata.
Hey, that's Dragon Ball to you.
And Cricket getting you home with traffic and weather.
Camp on Melt Lemon, not in the left lane on the freeway.
Here we go! And now, a man who has not one, but three first names, David Scott Kelly.
Bijan Robinson lined up in the slot, going in motion here.
Bijan Robinson dancing around. And he has the football, puts a move on. Bijan Robinson, he's going to have his first NFL touchdown.
And that stop touchdowns. You see Bijan Robinson right here catching the little bubble screen. But the move on Frankie Louvu. That guy is too big to move like that. But that's what the man.
Frankie Louvu is still trying to figure out where Bijan Robinson is. I mean, you talk about a debut in the National Football League for Tucson's own Bijan Robinson, South Point Catholic Lancer. For the Atlanta Falcons, 10 carries, 56 yards, had a 21-yard run, 6 catches for 27 yards, had a 17-yard reception, and that touchdown you heard right there. Not a bad way to start the NFL career for Bijan Robinson. The announcer saying, puts on a move. I mean, that was a pretty sick move he put on him.
The Falcons' leading receiver based on receptions after week 1. 6 catches puts him ahead of everybody, including tight end Kyle Pitts. So, needless to say, a very good start to Bijan's NFL career. And may I say, that move of his deserved a Chris Berman. Absolutely put that poor man on skates.
I mean, it did indeed. That was something pretty right there. That move by Bijan Robinson. The Atlanta Falcons at home defeated the Carolina Panthers and rookie quarterback Bryce Young 24-10. Bryce Young 20 of 38, 146 yards through a pair of interceptions and was sacked twice. Not exactly. I mean, again, we've got a couple of rookie quarterbacks who are starting in the National Football League, but not exactly what Bryce Young was looking for.
Also, a near heart attack for poor Bryce Young in that Hayden Hurst caught his first NFL touchdown pass and then threw it into the stands. And then Hayden Hurst then went to Twitter. He's like, look, I got a little excited, but we did get the ball. The guy gave it back, no problem. So Bryce does have his first touchdown ball. So congratulations to Bryce. Obviously not the result he wanted in the game, but hey, you got that first one out. That's all that matters.
Yeah, lots of stuff happened around the National Football League. Monday Night Football tonight, the Bills and the Jets, as Dragon Ball mentioned in the last half hour. We will obviously not be carrying Monday Night Football here on Wildcats Radio 1290 because we've got the Jetfish Radio Show, which will be at 6:05 tonight. And then we will have Monday Night Football again for you on Thursday to start week 2. The Minnesota Vikings will be at the Philadelphia Eagles. That should be a good one. Coverage will begin at 4:30 with kickoff at 5:20 right here on Wildcats Radio 1290. So we are your home for Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night NFL Football, and Sunday morning NFL football when the games go over the pond to the Europe side. I think there's going to be about
early morning.
4. Yeah, it's going to be about 6 a.m. maybe, something like that. Or is it 9 a.m. here? No, it's going to be about 6 a.m. here. I think those games are going to start. It's going to be early. You're going to have to get up early to listen to those games. People will do it though.
6:30 in the morning.
You can't get into the bar to watch the game that early, but you can listen to it on the radio. We had a new bar, the Browns. We've got a new bar. We're at Barbecue Rush is what it's called, down on the south side over there at the KOA RV park. Nice little establishment there. Some good smoked barbecue ribs and tri-tip and all that good stuff, man. I like a good barbecue on Sunday. So nothing wrong with that. Got to see the Browns win in the rain over the Cincinnati Bengals, who went to the AFC Championship game last year. Nothing like winning the Battle of Ohio. I'm not a huge Deshaun Watson fan. Really don't like what he's all about. But he got a couple touchdowns for the Browns yesterday. So it was a nice way to start the season for the Cleveland Browns.
Well, that being said, it's not anything to go ahead and say that, the Bengals are done. They're not as good. Guess what? This team lost their first 2 games last season and then proceeded to go on to be a 12-4 squad last season, get back to the AFC Championship game. So the Bengals had a very bad day, obviously, and not the best way to show off $300+ million quarterback Joe Burrow, who only had 81 passing yards in that game before he got pulled.
Yeah.
He got pulled from
Jake
that
Browning came in. Jake Browning, the Washington Husky, came in on Sunday. All right, 520-848-1290. 520-848-1290 is the number to get in on the program. What'd you think of Bijan's debut in the National Football League? As we mentioned, 56 yards rushing, 27 yards receiving. So that's what, if my U-High math is correct, that would be 83 all-purpose yards for Bijan Robinson in his opener with a touchdown. Let's hear from the pride of Tucson, Tucson's new NFL son.
Back in preseason, you're like, I'm nervous first carry. Was that like that today too, or was it a different feeling for you today when you actually got out there?
No, I mean, I was ready to go. Obviously, you want, the best result you can, but not really nervous. It was just me more ready and getting that first carry and getting, my feet under me, so.
John, you mentioned when the offense was kind of sputtering a little bit going into halftime. What were those conversations like? Not necessarily what you guys were saying, but just the general demeanor of the leaders on the team.
Yeah, I mean, nobody was down. Like, nobody was like, head down, moping. Like, everybody was like, bro, we're good. Like, we're about to come out here and attack even harder. And just seeing that mentality and just knowing that if something's not going your way in that moment, and to have the teammates support and come up. And we have a lot of like super good leaders too. So, we walked back in here and everybody was like just happy to go back out there. And I was a part of that. So I think it was a blessing to see that. And, all the leaders in the offensive line was even huge. They weren't phased at all. So, we weren't either. So it was pretty fun to see that going into halftime.
Should we expect to see DeMarco and burn orange on Monday or Wednesday?
Oh, I don't know. Matter of fact, I'm gonna talk to him about that. I'm like, dude, I'll let you wear one of my jerseys.
Did you text him after the game?
Oh, I saw him after the game. I was like, what'd you think? And he was like, man, like he was just mad. But I told everybody that we were gonna win the game, and they were just like, you guys are gonna get smacked. But I was like, nah, just wait, and then pulled it off yesterday.
Any significance to the 99 or just
I got this from Urban Outfitters, and I thought, I thought it looked good. So that's why I got it.
Oh, just checking.
Yeah.
Bijan is an offensive guy. What is it like when to watch a guy like Jesse get so many interceptions for you guys and set the offense up well as well?
I mean, just seeing how he works in practice, and he works every single day, and he's so big on the little things and trying to be better at the little things, and he knows he's a top safety in the league, but he doesn't say that. He's like the most humble guy, and you wouldn't even know that he is a top safety just because he never says it. But just seeing how he works and how I compete against him and how he competes against me, and we get each other better, like that didn't surprise me out there when he got those interceptions and made all those big plays. Like, that's just who he is.
What were the emotions like getting your first big-time score?
Oh, it was awesome. Just seeing like all my teammates come immediately. Like, I was just trying to just celebrate with them. But it was so much fun to see that and to get that the first game. And hopefully we can do so many more things, later on.
Bijan, there were times.
All right, Bijan Robinson talking about Jesse Bates III trying to become Defensive Player of the Week in the first week of the season. Had a pair of interceptions for the Atlanta Falcons in their 24-10 win over the Carolina Panthers. A lot of happy folks in Atlanta with this particular victory, and quarterbacking that team again is Desmond Ridder, 15 of 18. Didn't throw the ball a whole lot, 115 yards, but got sacked 4 times, but relatively efficient with that 15-18 finish with a 112 quarterback rating.
I will say there's a part of me that wants to see one thing change with this Falcons team, and every coach on that staff needs to shave that mustache. I can't stand the Ted Lasso mustache they got going on there. It just, none of them look good in it, and someone should tell them they don't look good in it. The Ted Lasso stash on the whole staff just
Everybody's
does not
got
look
one?
good. Everybody on that staff
boy.
has a Ted Lasso stash,
That's
and
not
it
good.
looks good on nobody. But the city of Atlanta definitely is happy. You got the Falcons winning their opener, and the Braves clinched their playoff spot, so they're officially going to be going into October this year.
Maybe you guys missed out on the part where facial hair is not supposed to look good. That's the whole trend the last 5 years. The worse it looks, the better it is. That's kind of the deal. So if you think it doesn't look good, that's kind of the point.
Oh, man. That's true. I hate that. I hate that that's true. Oh, no.
Speaking of the Braves, Ronald Acuna yesterday went 1 for 3 and did drive in a couple of runs, but my fantasy team, and I'm going to show you the score here, folks, and I'll explain it to you. So let's see if we can see it there. That's the score. It finished 7-7. Okay. And guess who didn't have the tiebreaker? I came up 1 short in 4 categories. 1 home run short, 1 stolen base short, 1 victory short, 1 quality start short. If I had gotten one of those, I win the title.
What designates the tiebreaker?
Higher seed.
Best facial
higher
hair.
seed.
That should be it right
Best
there.
facial
Facial
hair.
hair.
I was the number 3 seed. He was the number 1 seed. So he wins the title based on that.
Based on the regular
So,
season performance.
I was 1 win short. Garrett Cole pitched his butt off, and the damn Yankees could not score 1 run. 1. All I needed was 1 run from the damn Yankees.
Now, DK, when was the last time you were that animated over a Cleveland baseball team loss?
Probably when they lost the Game 7 of the World
So
Series.
you're more
Speaking of
animated over
sevens.
losing playoffs for your fantasy team than you are for the team that you followed for 40 years. Is that right?
Well, no, I mean, you mean this year? I haven't been animated about the Indians losing games this year because they're not very good. But yeah, when they're in the postseason, absolutely. Yeah.
What you
No,
experienced.
I couldn't get a single home run or stolen base from anybody yesterday.
No.
I only needed 1 home run.
No, what you experienced yesterday or during the weekend was every New York Mets fan's hatred over the Mets not scoring runs for Jacob deGrom. And my father will attest to this, and that it is the most frustrating thing when you get a good pitcher that nobody can score on the days they start.
Totally frustrating. And I look back at that day that my offense, the best day they had this week, I think was Wednesday. The Thursday, they hit 328, but I had 3 home runs left on the bench that day. Those 3 home runs, if I had played one of those guys, I win the title. I failed on Monday because it was Labor Day, and I forgot to set my lineup. I didn't play Bryson Stott. He had a stolen base on Monday.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
If I had played Bryson Stott on Monday,
Gotta bring up.
I'm the champion
gotta
today.
check your lineups on holidays,
I
man.
know. I did not. I failed. That's what you can't sleep on any given day in fantasy baseball and expect to win a title. So it's all my fault. I even got a save from Camilla Doval yesterday.
It's always next year.
It's always next year.
I still won some money, so I'm happy. All right, getting you home every 20 minutes on the 5s with your traffic. Here's Cricket.
From the O'Reilly Chevrolet Traffic Center, it's Wildcats Radio 1290 Traffic and Weather together. With reported collisions, we've got Nogales Highway near Irvington, south of Irvington on Nogales Highway, Houghton and Escalante, collision Ina at I-10 reported at the Ina I-10 overpass, Kolb and Valencia, collision at the intersection, and then another collision reported on Valencia east of Kolb Road. 78 overnight tonight, and a 25% chance of rain for tomorrow. 101 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. And right now, save 50% off any order during our Labor Day sale. Blindster.com.
Not all sports stations are built the same way. 1290 has Wildcats football, men's basketball, and baseball, plus the NFL and the Super Bowl. Tucson trusts 1290. This is Wildcats Radio 1290.
Wake up, Eugene! You're gonna be late again!
Go away, Doug. You're interrupting my dream.
At the FIBA World Cup against Canada over the weekend, the reload has begun for the Olympics as LeBron says he'll be joining in the upcoming games, and he wants to bring current Sun star Kevin Durant to the games as well. Other reports also say that Devin Booker is reportedly interested in joining the squad. The judge overseeing the Oregon State and Washington State suit against the departing Pac-12 schools has ruled in favor of OSU and WSU. With the ruling, there will be a temporary restraining order given to prevent the departing schools from meeting until they can determine who has the right to make up the quickly emptying board of directors for the conference. In the suit, both Oregon State and Washington State are hoping to go and take full control of the decision-making for the conference. At your 2020 Sports Update, we'll have more for you here on Wildcats Radio 1290.
DK on the Sports Tip on Wildcats Radio 1290.
In my humble opinion, I think that the 10 departing schools from the Pac-12 should relinquish any rights that they have to anything and let Oregon State and Washington State take all the money. That's what I think. Oregon State and Washington State deserve everything from this dying conference. None of the schools that are leaving the Pac-12 should take anything with them. Nothing. How do you feel about that? 848-1290, 520-848-1290. Oregon State and Washington State, J-Dub should get everything.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think those are the two teams that got left out, those programs. What we're talking about here is 6 years of allocated funds from NCAA tournament appearances, every school, and therefore the conference that the school's affiliated with. They get money that's allocated over a period of time. It's not given in one lump sum. So with the 10 schools leaving, you've got those two schools still hopeful they can put something together with the Pac's name. Well, the business dealings behind that, obviously the money that will be allocated over the course of the next 5 or 6 years from NCAA tournament appearances for basketball, postseason football berths, the television money from that goes to the conference that gets splits up evenly. That's what's at hand here. Once the meeting was supposed to take place on Wednesday, in which the 12 chancellors and presidents were going to vote to dissolve that, and therefore they would all get it split evenly, right? And this injunction allows for that those two schools. And as you said, DK, I mean, as far as everybody else has a bright future except for the two aforementioned schools. Those two schools are going to wind up in a conference that's never going to be on television. How do you get – it was already hard enough to recruit, right, to Pullman to begin with. How do you get recruits out of L.A. or whatever to come up and play there without the prospect of being able to see them on television, telling your grandma, hey, tune into this channel right now? It doesn't look promising that those schools will be in any conference moving forward.
No, the situation is like the best option probably right now for Washington State and Oregon State as individual universities is to potentially look at them moving on to maybe the Mountain West or something like that, because I don't know if there's going to be enough. There's not going to be enough in the back end of the Pac-12 to offer spots to San Diego State or any of these other schools, or Boise State or anything else like that, to go and have them join and make a new quote-unquote Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-8, because what do you have?
Well, that's the problem. The problem is these deals are made 10 years in advance, and they're based on projected revenues. So the reason that Pac-12, DK, was unable to come to a media rights deal in these last 18 months they've been at it and at the table trying to get that done is because they didn't see a potential future of watchability that they would be able to draw eyeballs based on what they have. And if the first couple of weeks of the season are any indication, they might have been wrong about that, DK. Because right now, there are 8 teams ranked in the top 25 from the last year of the Pac-12 conference. And the most ever is 8. So they tied the most ever is 10. Pac-12 ties the 8. SEC is the only conference to ever have as many as 8. So 8 is the most any other conference besides the SEC, who had 10 September 2015 is the record number of teams voted into the AP top 25. Right now, the Pac-12 has 8 in their final season of play.
That is unbelievable. 8 ranked teams. They talked about in Las Vegas that this was going to be an extraordinary year for Pac-12 football, And at least in the early portion of the year, it has become that. This is a conference that has been dominant in the non-conference. I believe the only 2 losses belong to Arizona and Arizona State are currently. Did Cal win that game the other night?
Well, yeah,
against
because the
Auburn?
other game was interconference, right? It was Cal-Stanford.
Did Cal beat Auburn, or did they lose that game? I don't recall what happened.
I didn't see the final.
Yeah, they were losing late.
It actually makes me a little upset in that all decision-making, DK, is based on television revenue from football. We all know football runs everything. That's what the conversation's been about for the last 4 or 5 years. We also know After Dark doesn't work for a lot of East Coasters. We all know what percentage, 60% of people live east of the Mississippi. We know all these numbers, right? The issue I have is the talk of the Pac not being viable, not playing a good brand of football, therefore not being able to get people to watch games. If you have a top 10 matchup between a top 10 ranked team and an 8th ranked team in this conference, or if you have the 15th ranked team against the 7th, I guarantee you casual fans around the country will tune in for a 12 versus 7, regardless of what conference they come from. That's how television works, casual fans. So the last year of the Pac-12 conference, we're looking at what potentially could be the best top to bottom as far as quality teams, DK, go, in a year that the Pac-12 is dissolving because they didn't have enough quality teams to get a media contract. It's it's insane.
It's insane. It is very insane. 520-848-1290. 520-848-1290 is the number to get on the program. We're talking about the Pac-12, NFL, the first weekend. What'd you like about what your team did? It is the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. I spoke about how I was working in Cleveland radio at the time. We had all kinds of fighter jets circling above the city because Cleveland kind of sits on the north coast and near the Canadian border, and they were scrambling to, just basically no one knew what was happening, and so they were kind of protecting the borders. Dragon Ball was in 8th grade, or 8 years old. Yeah. 8 years old at the time. How about you, J-Dub? What was kind of your experience that day?
Well, for me, September 11th, 2001 was a little more personal because my mom passed away on September 9th. And so we were getting ready for the funeral, and my dad and I were going to fly up there. And obviously the planes hit the towers, everything was grounded. And so I ended up not being able to fly up there to the funeral. And my good friend Allie, she dropped everything and drove me up there. My car was A to B at the time, not really able to get all the way up there. But it was obviously I was in the same position as everybody else. I do not drink. I bartended for a long time. I do not drink with the goal of getting drunk. And the night before September 11th was one of the only times in my life I have done that. So I woke up kind of groggy the next day, very similar to your experience, DK. I woke up, I called my dad. We had plans to maybe go get a new suit jacket, that kind of thing, but to prepare for the funeral. And he said, "What the hell are you talking about? Turn the television on." And he hung up. And that was this was at, whatever time of the morning it was. I had a few vodka drinks the night before. Watching that, it was just very sobering, no pun intended. And like everybody else, I was just experiencing in shock about the whole situation. Side note, I was roommates at the time with an A-10 pilot, Mr. Fisher, and he and his squadron had been assigned to South Korea for 6 months. And the way that works is 24 go out with 12 planes. They split it up. 12 fly the planes out. The others fly commercial or whatever. On the way back, they switch it up. So he was a part of the groups flying back. They just happened to be coming back on that day. And because it wasn't a wartime situation, they actually were approaching land and they got locked on by F-16s with missile lock because at the time they had grounded all planes across America. These guys were coming back from overseas. And apparently, this is the way I was told by them, but there's some kind of war code that they have to give out if there's no visible recognition between, that they're friendlies. And so there was a momentary brief period of time. He told me that story. It just so happened to be at the same time. I think it was a few or 3 hours after all that they were coming back. But yeah, so personally, I had some family personal things going on that weekend as well. But just the idea of, I think to me, the rallying of America behind that moment was really my biggest takeaway. I think for at least 24 hours, people put their differences aside, hug your loved ones, make sure that you recognize what you do have. Obviously, anything you can do to help. My sister, her husband at the time was a paramedic in New York City, so he was one of the first responders. He was down there. I do not have his number. They've been separated for some time now. They're all from upstate New York, but yeah, I mean, as far as the moment in time goes, I think I'm right there with everybody else, DK. It was just a life-altering moment, and I don't think America's been the same since then.
Mike Sakala checks in. I remember waking up for work, turned on the TV about a minute before the second plane hit the tower, woke up my roommate and told him to turn on his TV, got to work. It was a very somber feel, no music on the radio, everyone just walking around in a bit of a daze. Incredibly sad day. Same thing on TV, 4 days. It's been 22 years, but in some ways it feels like it was just yesterday. Want to hear what your 9/11 memory was? Where were you when it happened? That is our question of the day. What do you remember about that day and where you were? You can go to our Twitter page at Wildcats1290 and check in with us right there. You can also go to our Facebook page at Wildcats Radio 1290 like Mike did and leave us a comment there. Or you can call the program or text the program. The number to do so is 520-848-1290, 520-848-1290. Those are the numbers to get in on the program. A lot in store for you still to come. We are going to hear from the head coach of the Arizona Wildcats, Jed Fish. He spoke today. Lamont Hunley will join us in the 5 o'clock hour. He is our Wildcat insider for today, as well as we'll get you updated on what happened in high school football over the weekend. Some big performances. Caden Luke up at Canyon del Oro is just absolutely tearing it up for the Dorados. I mean, I saw this kid play last year. He's a big dude. He is a big, big dude. Great wrestler as well, but he can run that rock. I covered a game last year where they played Catalina Foothills, and this dude, I don't know. I'll have to ask Glenn Howe because Glenn Howe works with him, trains him. He probably weighs low 200s, I would think. And he hurdled a kid last year. I'll have to pull that video up from the KVOA account. He hurdled this kid on his way to like a 30-plus yard touchdown. I mean, kid went in low like he was going to tackle Caden Luke, and Caden Luke just hurdled right over him on the way to the end zone. He is having a fantastic season for CDO as they are off to a 3-0 start to this 2023 high school football campaign. All right, we'll talk about that coming up. Want to make sure, though, you get home every 20 minutes on the fives with you.
Chevrolet Traffic Center, this is Wildcats Radio 1290 Traffic and weather together. With reported collisions at Houghton and Escalante, crash occurred at Valencia and Cole Road. Then a second collision, Valencia east of Cole, Valencia and Pantano. Ina at I-10 and also clearing Nogales Highway to the south of Irvington. Overnight tonight, 78 is our low, 25% chance of rain tomorrow, and 100 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. And right now, save 50% off any order during our Labor Day sale. Blindster.com.
License to 40693.
All right, Polar Bears. New rule at Alaskan AC. If someone is broken down today, we get to them today, or the repair is free.
Absolutely. Call us today. We'll be there today.
I'm serious. Same day or it's free. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Did Ron just say sore butts?
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah.
Ron, what's Alaskan AC going to do?
We'll have a repairman at your home the same day you call. If we don't, the repair will be free.
No, the other part.
No ifs, ands, or buts.
Holy cow, he said it again.
Sore butts, clear as a bell.
Yeah, I can't really see myself putting a technician over my knee, Ron.
Kinda weird.
Kinda?
Whoa. What in the name of Klondike are you talking about?
Sore butts.
I said no ifs, ands, or buts.
Seriously, stop saying that.
Same day or it's free. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Maybe take a nap.
Maybe just say
AlaskanAC.com.
That was so uncomfortable.
I know.
There's only one place in Tucson where you can find unbeatable excitement, thrilling prizes, and next-level fun.
Oh, where's that?
I think you know.
Desert Diamond
Casinos.
Casinos.
And this September and October, the sizzling hot action is nonstop.
Tell me more.
First up, it's Rolling Up Riches every Thursday at Tucson, and you can win up to $5,000 cash each week.
I'll roll in for that.
Then on Fridays at Saurita, score a share of $70,000 in prizes with football fortunes. Lucky players every hour win up to $1,500 cash.
Sounds like a ball.
You bet. Plus, there's live entertainment, food and drink specials, Arizona's favorite sports book, the hottest slots and table games, and more. It's all at Desert Diamond Casinos.
That's true, Tucson.
An enterprise of the Thana Autumn Nation.
See Rewards Center for details.
Okay, kids, we're home. Everybody out.
Ew, my feet are stuck.
In what, honey?
On the floor.
Ew. Take off your shoes. Tommy, come carry your sister into the house.
What do you do when the car you use the most has the least amount of time to get clean? Let Recon Auto Detailing, Arizona's premier auto detailing company, come to you and turn your busiest car back into your best. From basic cleaning to a full detail, Recon Auto Detailing. Online at recondetail.com.
It was a loss by inches for the University of Arizona Wildcats on Saturday, but the football team will turn their attention now to UTEP after losing to Mississippi State on Saturday. Coach Fish says that he expects to see a full roster back on the field for the Wildcats this upcoming Saturday.
Stooks should be cleared to go. Practice on Tuesday. We're expecting him to be able to play on Saturday. Wyatt, we're expecting him to be able to play on Saturday. So as of today, my expectation is that Polito, Wyatt, Stooks, Irby not for injury purposes, but those other three should all be cleared to play on Saturday if they have no setbacks at Tuesday or Wednesday's practice.
The Wildcats preparing for their final non-conference game. The team has also learned that they will be kicking off their Pac-12 opener next week, and that will be against Stanford at 4 p.m. Arizona time. The NBA will be looking to get stricter with teams as they rest stars during the upcoming season, as the rules and punishments for resting players during national televised and in-season tournament games will result in stricter penalties, according to sources with the NBA's competition committee. The committee has recommended a plan that would give the league office authority for greater oversight over discipline from missed games and fine teams up to over $1 million. The Board of Governors is expected to go ahead and approve that plan on Wednesday. That's your 2020 Sports Update. We'll have more for you in the next 20 on Wildcats Radio 1290.
DK on the Sports Tip on Wildcats Radio 1290.
All right, pleased to be joined in studio by the sports editor of the Arizona Daily Star, Brett Farah. He has been around this city for a long time, a University of Arizona graduate from Los Angeles, and he is now the editor after he wrote for the paper. He also, Brett, you've worked about everywhere. You worked in the journalism department over at the U of A for a number of years as well. Let's kind of start there. Well, let's start from the fact that we've been talking about 9/11 and this being the 22nd anniversary, and that was very instrumental in how you got into this business.
It was. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but I mean, at some point, a couple days after, when everything paused in terms of sports, that as a freshman at U of A, big deal to me. Everything sort of paused and froze on a dime on that day. It was a Tuesday, was it?
Yeah, Tuesday. Yep.
And seeing when baseball came back in particular, seeing the games that were at Shea Stadium and the Mets coming out wearing NYPD and NYFD hats, and I think Mike Piazza and Bobby Valentine and all the guys on that roster, and watching sort of the impact in that stadium just from afar on TV. And then a couple of months later, seeing the Diamondbacks go up against the Yankees. And yes, it didn't work in the fairy tale ending for the Yankees in that sense in New York, but it was the first time I really understood, and we felt this 3 years ago as well with the pandemic, how much, while sports isn't always real life, how much it actually helps real life. It helps us sort of cut through certain things. It's an escape in a lot of ways, but it's not an escape. It's what we look forward to. And so with that missing for that little bit of time, for obviously necessary reasons, when it came back, it was so much more powerful. And I think we saw that 3 years ago with the pandemic. Everything froze for months. And then when baseball came back, I mean, I was on my couch every day. I won't say I wasn't working, but I mean, it was the only time I think I've ever paid for MLB extra innings and the extra packages, because we were like, we have to soak this in. And we've been dying for it, waiting for it. And so that it was instrumental to me. And it's the first time I ever put pen to paper in terms of thinking I was, like I said, a freshman in college, and submitted something to the Daily Wildcat that was not good enough to run, but it was good enough to get me an interview, and I got hired a month later and started in January of 2002 at the Wildcat, and now 21 years later, in a weird way, I think some people will make fun of me for this, but Tucson or not, it's my dream job.
Wow.
That I have now. So pretty neat full circle for me, selfishly speaking.
You are the sports editor now of the Arizona Daily Star, taking over for Ryan Finley, another U of A grad who moved on to a paper in his hometown in San Diego. So when that job came open, did you know you wanted it right away? I know you had been kind of doing some writing on the hockey beat and that kind of thing. I imagine you were also working behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I had a completely different role that was based on the fact that I have experience on the business side and the revenue generation and product development end, and then I also have experience on the editorial side. I've worked with students, you mentioned at U of A, for many years. I was the advisor and student media director, so working with students at the Daily Wildcat and UATV, Camp Student Radio, and simultaneously teaching a little bit in the journalism school. Worked professionally before that in Phoenix, ran newspapers up there, and so having experience sort of on both sides of that operation opened up a role for me 2 years ago at the Star. And when Ryan announced he was leaving, we got an incredible 7-month run or so from Michael Lev as the interim sports editor. He was kind of figuring out his next move, and it turned into his new role, which is as a columnist and sort of filling a necessary need to have more of a voice on things beyond his role for the last 8-9 years as the lead beat writer covering U of A football. But before that, he was in that interim role, and I was sort of assisting for those 6 months or so. And then we sort of figured out how this was going to play out. And the situation, I think, is great for everyone. Selfishly, I'm in a role I love. I think he's in a role he loves because he's, not sitting at a desk every day, but he's out and about. You probably saw him today at Media Day for
he's
football.
He's still at football almost every day.
Oh, yeah. Well, and now he'll be at basketball, and now it's going to open up his portfolio. He's doing high school stuff. He's following your beat a little bit, You're at everything. So he's getting to do some of that. So the part of this job, the best part about it in this city in particular is I've said this a few times, so anybody who's heard me talk somehow magically, and I'm sorry you've had to hear me talk, but if you've heard me say this, I'm not just saying it to say it, it's the truth. When you have Michael Lev and Bruce Pascoe and PJ Brown and Justin Spears and Greg Hansen still to some degree, and that's a murderer's row lineup right there. And it's not my job to babysit them in any way. They know what they're doing. It's my job to think of a coaching staff, someone who's looking at the 5th and 6th play down the road instead of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, because they got it covered. They know what they're doing. And I'm really excited to be in this role and be able to kind of look at the long-term future of what we're doing in terms of covering sports in Tucson, specifically around U of A, because obviously that's the centerpiece.
Well, let's talk about that. Brett Fair is the new sports editor at the Arizona Daily Star. So how do you want to mold this now in your vision? And take it to whatever next level that's going to be.
I think if we look at this not as sort of a product agnostic thing, but like the fact that there are sources in radio. So we have you here with 1290 and some of your competitors who I won't name on the air here, but nevertheless, people that provide really good coverage, and obviously yourself leading the way. We've got website production in terms of content and generation, and some of it fan specific, some of it more on the more journalistic side, but a lot of content surrounding U of A, surrounding high school, surrounding everything, TV. And then you have sort of the legacy component, which is the Star, a little bit from the Weekly, some other places. I think it all has a place. It's not my job to sit here and say, and I know The Athletic kind of did this a few years ago and kind of stepped in it a little bit when they first came about and said, we want to put these newspapers out of business. I don't want to do that. I want to see everybody grow, and I think part of that includes us doing a better job, and we haven't been perfect at it even yet since I've been there, at amplifying all of the coverage in town. And that might just be a retweet on social media. It might be a link in a story, but making sure that it's not this sort of segmented thing we've always seen. Yes, we have certain ways we're going to do it, and we think we're great at it, but at the same time, we also believe that there's a space for all of it. And so my simplified vision is that we got to be unique. We can't be producing the same thing, even if it's really good, the same thing everyone else is. We've got to do it in a unique way. So when Justin Spears goes to Starkville, Mississippi this past weekend and is one of the only people locally there from a media standpoint, his first thought was, this is SEC country. I got to see how these folks eat. I got to see how they party. And sure enough, wrote a really fun piece called we have a sibling site, part of the Daily Star, called This Is Tucson, which is sort of community driven, local, hyper local, just very community centric. A lot of it's based on food, on things to do, families. And so Justin came up with the idea of this ain't Tucson, because, and sure enough, tried some of the local haunts in Starkville. And, he's a beat writer covering football, but he still can bring something to the table beyond just X's and O's and whether they were a couple inches short. And so that's a big part of it, is making sure that everything we do has a unique touch that complements what everyone else in this sports coverage community is doing, not tries to replace it.
Yeah, Brett Fair joining us, the new sports editor for the Arizona Daily Star. You mentioned this, quote, murderer's row you have of talent, which I remember, but even in the last 10 years, how people keep saying newspapers are dying. And yes, there's been cuts, and there were cuts this year. But I still look at it and I say, man, if newspapers are dying, as someone who worked in TV for the last 12 years, I say they still got more people to cover stuff than we do. So are newspapers dying, or are you just having to, like any other media, reimagine how you utilize the people you have to get done what you have to get done? I think
it's definitely the latter, but it's not that newspapers are dying. It's that there are needs and goals, and I don't like saying this out loud, but I'm not going to lie to your listeners about it. There are people that don't like the Star necessarily because we're corporate owned by a company that isn't necessarily based in Arizona, and that's tough to swallow sometimes because they want to know that their subscription money or things like that are staying local. And so that's sort of the battle we go through, and anyone in our company does. And it's not because anyone purposefully wants to sit there and say, yeah, we're just going to bleed this company dry and stuff. It's that they want to see success in correspondence with the fact they have, to do their corporate diligence, the people we work for. And so it's a balance point that sometimes doesn't tip our way. But at the same time, you're 100% right. It's figuring out with the resources we do have and the opportunities that we have and the legacy that has been built. It isn't just the 5 names that I mentioned. There's so many more that have come through here.
Well, we gotta throw into the murderer's row Kelly Presnell, because he's about as best as they are,
amazing.
as there is out there.
As much as I love having Kelly out there for U of A games on Saturday, my favorite thing he does is shooting high school football on Friday nights, because there's no way to visualize what's actually going on a field like that without the TV coverage, the 15 cameras we'll see on major college football, all that stuff, compared to what he's capable of doing. And I love it. Yeah, you're totally right. And it even goes beyond that over the decades. And it's not just the Star, the Citizen, other areas in this city that have produced to the level for decades, that we're talking about. I mentioned Greg Hansen. I feel very lucky. His role's different than it was, but very blessed and lucky that he still is a part of our team and contributes in the way he does. I mean, his Sunday notebook is appointment reading for me. I mean, there's nobody that can grasp all those pieces like he does. So,
what is the number we mentioned at the top that you've worked with students at the U of A? What are the top core values that you're teaching them now that you were teaching them when you were in that role about what they need to do to be successful in this business?
I think it's funny because many years ago it would have been the opposite of this, which is specialize, get great at something, be the best at some one or two things that you can do, and really hone in. And it's kind of like high school sports, where for a while, up until very recently, it was talked about. And I think the Shohei Ohtanis of the world and maybe the Travis Hunters at Colorado playing both sides of the ball are showing that you don't have to be hyper specialized to the degree that you can't do something else really well too. And so I think my take to students are that resources in media are less than they were. That's just a given, which means that there aren't going to be 10 photographers and 10 sports writers and 10 news writers and 10 this and 10 that. Somebody that can do a lot of little things well, not necessarily the best at it, but to complement the specialists, is going to have the best opportunity. That's why, for example, Justin Spears has been able to take off at the Star. He came out of the student media department. I was very proud of him, but he worked TV, radio, and at the Wildcat and jumped right into a role at the Star. And 5 years later, he's the beat writer covering U of A football. But he hasn't given up all those other things. He still understands the digital landscape. He understands social media and how it plays a role into building his audience. He's not just writing words on a page and sending it. So that's the number one thing is also have a purpose. Don't let things just kind of happen around you. Have a purpose for why you're making the decision you're making. Whether it's what you're covering, how you're covering it, what questions you ask, what a headline is, make sure that there's a purpose behind everything. Then the last thing, and this is hard, and this is going to sound like I'm picking on certain folks in the media landscape, and it's not meant to, but there is a difference between journalism and content sometimes. And some of it is journalistic, and some of it, if we're relating to things that I would call sort of fan sites, they have a value. I'm not dismissing the purpose they serve in the ecosystem here, but there's a difference. And I think when you're working at one versus the other, you kind of have to know what your position is there and on that. And the journalism side tends to take a different tact and approach to things. We got hammered a little bit because we were not the first ones with information on the Pac-12, Big 12 move and things like that for U of A. But part of that was because there was a lot of rumors. Yeah. And we're not in the business necessarily of throwing every rumor out there. We will try to confirm some and put a couple out into the eco space that we think has backing. But that wasn't necessarily how we played that position, and that's not necessarily our role in this environment. So we're okay with the fact we didn't win that or break that. It was other folks in town who were right in what they said. But it just comes from a different place, and neither of it's right or wrong. It's just which one are you sort of attached to as you're coming into this business.
Justin Spears, still the most impressive student journalism I ever came across before or after. There's never been anybody I've met come out of U of A that did. I mean, I remember him asking questions as a student in press conferences. There are students that walk in there and don't ask questions. That would be the first thing I would tell them. You should come to every press conference prepared to ask at least one question and be a part of the process. Because I remember that was probably one of the most important things I learned, not even in college. I learned that when I first started covering professional sports. But he did that in college. And I said, this kid will be successful because he already gets it.
He's great at it. He really is.
Brett, appreciate you taking some time to join us today.
Thanks. Appreciate
we'll have you come in again.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Brett Farah, he is the sports editor for the Arizona Daily Star. check out their work. Like he said, he's got a murderer's row of talent over there on both the writing and photography side. We want to make sure we get you home with your traffic and weather. We've got our man, Lamont Hunley, coming up in the next hour with your Arizona Insider. He was down in Starkville. He'll tell you all about what he saw down there. This is DK on the Sports Tip. You're listening to Wildcats Radio 1290.
Chevrolet Traffic Center. It's Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together. Reported collisions, Grant and First Avenue and Grant Road. Also crash in Oro Valley at Oracle and McGee and Oracle. Also in the clearing stages, Valencia east of Kolb Road, and still some slowing on Valencia to the east of Kolb. And weather-wise, about 78 overnight is our low, 25% chance of rain for tomorrow, and 100 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. And right now, save 50% off any order during our Labor Day sale. Blindster.com.
This is Jim Rome with your Rome Report.
Wildcats saw their soccer team go ahead and come away with a win over Utah State with a late goal from the team's best striker in Nicole Dalen.
No score, Arizona locked up with Utah State. It's corralled by Dallin, who stays with it. Gets a foot on it, and it's in the back of the net. The goal comes in the 77th minute. Nicole Dallin breaks the scoreless tie.
She now sets her new personal high in goals scored in a season with that score, so congratulations to Nicole. Other results saw the men's golf team finish 4th out in Redmond, Washington for the Sahali Players Championship. On Saturday, volleyball sadly took another loss in 3 straight sets, this time to the Hurricanes of Miami, as the team finished up their time in Madison, Wisconsin. Michigan State football head coach Mel Tucker has been officially suspended by the university for athletic director Alan Haller announcing that Tucker is currently under investigation by the university into claims that he sexually harassed a prominent sexual assault awareness speaker when she was hired to address the team. The suspension is without pay, as Harlan Barnett will now serve as the interim head coach. That's your 2020 Sports Update. We'll have more from you the next 20 on Wildcats Radio 1290.
Live from the CNWT.
Wait, what's the CNWT?
Central Northwest Tucson, duh.
It's DK on the Sports Tip with your host, David Kelly.
Radio. Just when I thought I was out, they drug me back in.
Featuring J.W. Madden.
Don't tell me about flip-flops, man. I'm a native.
David Amata.
Hey, that's Dragon Ball to you.
And Cricket getting you home with traffic and weather.
Camp on Mount Lemon, not in the left lane on the freeway.
Here we go! And now, a man who has not one, but 3 first names, David Scott Kelly.
Oh, my God. The next building
There's
just
another
flew
one.
up. Oh, my God. God.
Another plane just flew in.
I feel a hit.
2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
The whole side has collapsed?
The whole building has collapsed.
Went directly into the Pentagon?
That is correct.
Looked like a deliberate act?
A deliberate act, sir.
Oh, my God.
The second tower.
We're talking about massive casualties here at the moment, and we have... Whew, it's hard to put it into words, and maybe one doesn't need to. Both trade towers, where thousands of people work, on this day, Tuesday, have now been attacked and destroyed.
9/11, September 11th, 2001, 22 years ago today, one of the ugliest days in the history of our country. A coordinated terrorist attack on the 2 World Trade Centers, airplanes flown into those 2 facilities. They came crumbling to the ground. Another plane flying into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Another plane taken down by hero passengers in Stone Creek Township of western Pennsylvania. And I think one of the interesting things that's come out of that day, in which close to 3,000 people died, was just the heroism of the folks that were on the plane above Pennsylvania, using a beverage cart to try to slam into the cockpit in an attempt to retake over that particular plane that had been hijacked, and doing whatever they could to try and save themselves. But at that point, I think, with the advances we'd had in cellular phones and whatnot, many of those passengers were aware of the other incidents, and so doing what they could on that flight that was bound for San Francisco to try to prevent potentially, who knows where they were, though, the hijackers on that plane. Were they going for the Sears Tower in Chicago? but helping to prevent that as that plane went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We want to hear your thoughts on 9/11. 520-848-1290, 520-848-1290. Where were you? What do you remember about that day? If you were here in Tucson, how that day was covered here in Tucson by the various media outlets. Just a horrific, horrific day in our country's history. Coming up in this hour, we're going to talk Arizona football with our insider of the day. His name is Lamont Hunley. Lamont went to Starkville, Mississippi, and was amongst the thousands and thousands of cowbells as the Arizona Wildcats tried to pull off the upset of the year. Did not quite happen, but after a shaky start at quarterback by Jaden Delore, really made a good name for themselves in the way that they performed in that ball game. So we'll talk to Lamont about that. 520-848-1290, 520-848-1290. Let's talk to Alfonso. You are on DK on the Sports Tip, Wildcats Radio 1290.
Hey, I hope everything's going good for yourself.
Good, Alfonso. How are you?
Awesome, great. So where I was at the Captain's Career Course in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. During that time, we were doing chemical, biological radiation training. And when the airplanes hit, it was chaotic. We didn't know anything was going on. It was like the fog of war. We were discussing, hey, we're going to go to different places and set up our equipment. But it was just chaos. And what I do appreciate during the time, sometimes it's a little forgotten in this time of politics and everyone having their own opinion, which they should, is that the country coming together. For a moment, we forgot our politics, and we came together as Americans, whether if you're left or right in your politics or anything in between. That's something I do remember.
Now,
but going back to it, yeah, it was pretty chaotic.
What branch of the military were you, Alfonso?
I was in the Army, and I was something of a chemical biological radiation officer, and graduate of the U of A in Bear Down. So, yeah, I was out there, and at the time we didn't know where we were going. I mean, everybody has their own personal little stories. Like, I can remember we was in the international school. We had officers from other countries, and we had officers from Saudi Arabia, and we were kind of worried about them. You know, at the time there was a lot of, and it turned out to be true, you know, there was a roll of it. So our Saudi Arabian officers, you know, they went to the store the next day and they got little flags of Mexico. And when they went to town, they would tell people, no, I'm Mexican. So
wow,
just little anecdotes about that.
Wow.
But
so what was like? What was like being in the military on that day? I mean, did they like pull you into a room at all and say, you know, be ready for anything? I mean, what kind of happened as the day went on?
Well, we knew that there was a tremendous amount of life. We didn't know the amount. And we knew there was a lot of our friends had died in the Pentagon. And we were thinking, hey, do we need to keep going? And the answer was, yes, we're going to continue to train. We're going to continue to study because we're Americans, and Americans don't quit. And we're going to honor them by not letting someone else telling us how we feel and do. So we kept on training. We kept on going. But there was discussion, hey, where do we go? But we didn't know where we were going at the time.
Are you still active military, Alfonso?
No, believe it or not, after 20 years, been all over the world. My last duty assignment was in Afghanistan. I did police corruption and women's rights. And right now, I'm a kindergarten teacher.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, this is my first year, so it's surreal.
Well, Alfonso, we appreciate your service.
Hey, thank you, and bear down, and hopefully we can get a little bit more of the penalties down against UTEP.
Let's hope we can keep them down, and the turnovers. Keep the penalties down, keep the turnovers down.
I think I remember something about turnovers during the game. I'm not quite sure, but I think there was one or two.
You going to the game, Alfonso? You going to be there?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, stop by our pregame. We'll be on the mall Saturday. Stop by and say hello.
Take care out there.
All right, Alfonso. Appreciate his call and sharing his story on 9/11. 520-848-1290. 520-848-1290 is the number to get in on the program. If you would like to share your story about where you were, what you saw, what you heard on 9/11. A lot of memories about that day. I mentioned earlier being in Cleveland, and I would imagine it was probably a lot like here, just because again, Cleveland is close to an United States border. Arizona, Tucson is close to a United States border, and military aircrafts were just scrambling around the borders that day. And we always had it was very interesting living in Cleveland just overall, because obviously we always used to talk about the contrails that would be in the sky. I mean, that was kind of a daily thing. And you always wondered, why do we see so many contrails here in Northeast Ohio? And, I always envisioned it was because of the fact that we were kind of, quote, a border city, for lack of a better term, because there's no more United States once you hit the Lake Erie. In Ohio, you go about halfway, and then you transition into Canada. So there was always a lot of military activity in the skies above Cleveland, but even more so on that day when there was a thought. And I would imagine, had that plane that went down in Shanksville, had that not happened, that plane may have ended up being in airspace above Cleveland, Ohio at some point on that day.
Yeah. I can tell you this, DK, growing up here during the Cold War, that the Boneyard, being the third largest air force in the world behind the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force, Tucson's always been fourth or fifth on the target list. And so I know they have these drills whenever there's any kind of attack on America. The Boneyard has always been a huge target. So I'm sure whatever channels were open that day here in Tucson militarily, I'm sure discussions were, the way it is out here with planes above Cleveland you're talking about is when the weather gets bad, you'll see a whole bunch of planes because they have to train bad weather. But that day, I do not remember planes in the air that particular day, but I do know because Southern Arizona's always been a big target, I'm sure they had to have had discussions and have to have some kind of a situational setup for something like that, any kind of attack on America, because Tucson's always been so high on our priority list.
All right, getting you home every 20 minutes on the fives with your traffic and your weather. Let's turn it over to the fabulous Cricket.
From the O'Reilly Chevrolet Traffic Center, it's Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together. Reported collisions Park Avenue near Irvington, Prince and Flowing Wells in Prince, Grant Road and First Avenue, and also Valencia and Kolb, just east of Kolb on Valencia. Earlier crash there clearing. Weather-wise, overnight tonight, about 78 as our low, a 25% chance of showers tomorrow, and 100 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together.
This report is sponsored by Big O Tires.
2020 Sports.
The Cardinals hung in tough despite being a 7-point underdog against the Commanders, as their final play did not result in the touchdown they needed against Washington. And it was a quick turnaround for Cardinals starting quarterback Josh Dobbs. But Coach Jonathan Gannon had high praise for his work on such a short notice.
Yeah, I thought he did good. He operated. We had a couple good drives there. He took care of the ball. The two were unfortunate, but that's going to happen. But I thought our operation was pretty clean. He made some throws. Operated well. I thought he did a good job.
The Cardinals now prepare for their upcoming game against the Giants. The Los Angeles Angels could undergo a major change this offseason, as the team is reportedly looking to entertain potential trade discussions for outfielder Mike Trout if he decides he wants out of the team. Already this offseason, the Angels have to go ahead and compete to keep Shohei Ohtani as he prepares for the winter meetings, but now it appears that should Trout request a trade, the Angels will open up their phones to see what they could get for the former MVP. That's your 2020 Sports Update. We'll have more for you in the next 20 on Wildcats Radio 1290.
DK on the Sports Tip on Wildcats Radio 1290. It's the 5 o'clock hour, and it's time for our Arizona Insiders.
Am I late? No, my boy, you're just in time.
Each weekday, Wildcats Radio 1290 brings you all the latest news and opinions on U of A football and the Pac-12. So bear down, Tucson, and let's talk Arizona football. Our Arizona Insiders are brought to you by Coors Light, official corporate sponsors of Arizona Athletics. There's nothing like game day at Arizona.
All right, let's talk to our Arizona Insider of today. His name is Lamont Hunley, U of A football class of 1984, and he happened to go back to Starkville, Mississippi for the game Saturday, which ended in a loss for Arizona, 31-24. And Lamont, now you're a Virginia guy, if I'm not mistaken, by birth. So what was going to see football in the South like for you?
Well, you know what? Like you said, I am a Virginia guy by birth, so the style of football, I came accustomed to that style of football growing up in that community, and with the Carolinas and the Floridas, especially when I was being recruited in that area. So, but it is. I mean, it is a different lifestyle of football back in that territory. It's quite different than any other place I've been.
So give us a sense of like when you got there and what was the trip in terms of like socially, and did you get some of the nice eats that they have down there?
Yeah, well, I had planned on going back simply because of the fact I have a couple of buddies that live in the Atlanta area.
There you go.
Yeah, and I just thought it was an opportunity to get back there myself and a few of my other brothers to get back there and go visit with them, play a little golf in the process just as well, and drive over to Mississippi and experience that type of environment. And like you said, man, and actually the people there, I mean, they are so welcoming. They want you to be on their property. They want you to be there. They want you experiencing what they're experiencing. And that's how I felt. I felt very, very welcome as far as being a part of it and tailgating with, people from Mississippi. And so all in all, other than the actual outcome of the game, it was a great weekend.
So are those cowbells really loud?
They are, hey Dave, they are so loud and so annoying. I'm telling you, man. We were the section we were sitting. A guy he befriended a couple of Arizona fans, some parents of some of the players, and he just brought himself over in that area with his cowbell, and and he got to the point where he was going over the board a little bit. He crossed the line a little bit too much with it per se, so he was asked to leave. So put it that way. He was asked to leave, so he politely left the section and went on his merry way. But that's their lifestyle. I mean, that's a cultural thing, and in some cases, you expect it as far as an opponent going into that environment. And I'm telling you, man, just sitting in that stadium and feeling the energy from that crowd. I mean, those players at Mississippi State, they fed into it and played that way.
It's interesting. Jed came out after the ball game and said that he believes that we can have that type of environment here in Arizona. I mean, obviously, Starkville is not. It wasn't one of those SEC environments where there was 90, 80,000 people. That was a 51,000 person environment. We can easily do 51,000 people here. If people get behind this program. I think from that standpoint, yes, in terms of the people you get into that building, you can do that here in Tucson. Now, I don't know if you can create that same type of energy. It would have to be a different type of energy because you're not ringing cowbells. But do you believe that? Do you believe that Tucson could have that type of environment?
Oh, by all means. And me first getting here at this university, I played in that environment. I mean, that environment was like that in the 80s. When I came here, I mean, and keep in mind, the stadium was filled. I mean, we had close to 60-some thousand people in that stadium. And as far as a player, I felt that type of environment. And by all means, it could happen here in Tucson. What other show you have in town on Saturday? There's nothing else.
Yeah.
Nothing else going on. Now, keep in mind, it is a cultural thing that goes generations and generations when you go back east to the SEC. And, I mean, we're talking families. I mean, walking out the tailgate, at some point there was probably 2 to 3, father, grandfather, son combination that we ran into. So that by itself, it what creates that atmosphere that I personally saw on Saturday and our players experienced too. So it is a cultural thing and it's an environmental thing that's generational. So we have to create that first here in Tucson. And you create it by, going into hubs like the south side of Tucson and different places like that, where, a man, he works his butt off from 9 to 5 for Friday and buy a ticket or a couple of tickets so he can take his kids to experience that moment. And once that father see that kid look up into his eyes and say, Dad, this is the greatest moment in my life. Then it becomes contagious. It becomes a part of that community environment. But me personally, I remember telling Greg Burns, don't go to the foothills, go to the south side and get these people to come. Because you go to the south side and get these people to come, these people are Tucsonians for life. And that next family going to come, that next generation going to come. And now you create traditional and generational fans. Okay, not a one-time fan, generational fans. And that's how they do in the SEC.
Lamont Hundley joining us. He's our Arizona Insider. U of A football class of 1984, sponsored by Coors Light. Coors Light, an official corporate sponsor of Arizona Athletics. There's nothing like game day at Arizona. Let's talk about the defense and how they played in this game, Lamont. Obviously, they figured it out pretty quickly because Mississippi State was getting some chunk plays early, but after that first quarter, man, U of A's defense went to work and shutting down the run. I thought they played extremely well in how they handled that situation in a hostile environment to keep their football team in the game, considering that the offense took a while to get untracked.
Exactly, man. My hats off to the defense. Hats off also to the to Johnny as far as the play calling and adjustments that he made in order to, shut down that rush because Marks was finding his spots.
Yeah,
going up and down the field. He was most definitely finding his spots. The offensive line, our defensive line at the beginning was not getting as much penetration that we did naturally the first game. But as we got our feet underneath us, a few snaps underneath us, I saw the point of attack had reversed itself, meaning our defensive line was being more aggressive to the point of attack and pushing their offensive line back to allowing our linebackers and particularly Flo. I gotta compliment that kid. Flo was running up and down that field and not only making tackles, but he was making some impact tackles, knocking running backs' heads backwards versus guys, making a tackle and moving 2 or 3 yards forward. He was hitting heads and sending them backwards. So, off that end of it, those quick adjustments that was made and the pressure that defense was under as far as what the offense placed them in with those turnovers very quickly. I mean, those kids grew up and showed their maturity. I mean, I was proud of them, man. I was very proud of them.
Obviously, a late missed ankle tackle in that ball game costs the Wildcats. As a linebacker, kind of speak to the technique of that if you're trying to go low to get a guy to the ground in that type of situation, Lamont.
Well, if they're going low to the ground, that the fact is they launching at their legs because they're not close enough to get to the individual. That's why they're launching at them at that point in time. There's no tackle that I know of that's really taught to launch. You're taught to run through the body of the person. So if you're running through the body of the person, you're not leaving your feet, correct?
Yeah.
You're running through. So you're running through with your legs up, your feet up, and you're running through, and you accelerated through it. But you have to be there in order to do that. So in some cases, particular case that happened with that particular run play, the linebacker just was not in the right angle, first and foremost, to be able to be heads up on the running back where he could run through the running back. The worst case, take a side of him and run him to the sideline. So in this case, he basically got bubbled out. He got pushed back in the defensive line. So that was the spacing there that was created for himself. Unfortunate. So he placed himself in a bad situation. And most running backs are better athletes than linebackers anyway. So now you put that linebacker in open field like that against a running back. All he has to do is move his hips one here or there, and the outcome is what we saw. So again, when you see them launching, it's because of the fact that they can't get there. So they trying to launch themselves in hopes of getting some part of that running back to bring him down. But a good running back is going to run through his defender, his offensive running back. A good linebacker going to run through the running back and try to take him to the sideline and use the sideline as his 12th man and take him out.
He is Lamont Hundley, U of A football class of 1984, our Arizona Insider, brought to you by Coors Light. Coors Light is an official sponsor of Arizona Athletics. Coors Light, there's nothing like game day at Arizona. Lamont, appreciate you as always. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, brother. See you this weekend. Bye-bye.
All right, Lamont Hundley, linebacker for the University of Arizona. Good thoughts there on how linebackers technically need to. I don't even know if that's a word technically, but
it is now.
I'll invent it. Yeah, need to run through ball carriers versus launching at their ankles because, yeah, those ankle tackles just don't work.
Thanks to Coors Light for bringing you today's Arizona Insiders on Wildcats Radio 1290. Coors Light, official corporate sponsors of Arizona Athletics. There's nothing like game day in Arizona.
All right, you'll hear from the head coach of your Arizona Wildcats. We may do that because actually you're going to hear from him again at 6:05. So I don't know if we want to play it back to back. I'll make that decision here during the break. You'll either hear from Jed Fisher. I'm going to tell you about what happened in high school football this weekend. But first, we want to get you home every 20 minutes on the fives with your traffic and your weather. Here's Cricket.
From the O'Reilly Chevrolet Traffic Center, it's Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together. Reported collisions Park Avenue near Irvington, Prince and Flowing Wells in Prince, Grant Road and First Avenue, and also Valencia and Kolb, just east of Kolb on Valencia. Earlier crash there clearing. Weather-wise, overnight tonight, about 78 as our low, a 25% chance of showers tomorrow, and 100 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Klein tools are new at Lowe's. Right now, get the new Klein 3-piece ModBox mobile workstation exclusively at Lowe's for just $319.94. Because Lowe's knows tools. Lowe's knows pros.
When you can't stop, there's Vicks VapoRub.
With Team USA falling in the bronze medal game at the FIBA World Cup against Canada over the weekend, the reload has begun for the Olympics as LeBron says he'll be joining in the upcoming games, and he wants to bring current Sun star Kevin Durant to the games as well. Other reports also say that Devin Booker is reportedly interested in joining the squad. The judge overseeing the Oregon State and Washington State suit against the departing Pac-12 schools has ruled in favor of OSU and WSU. With the ruling, there will be a temporary restraining order given to prevent the departing schools from meeting until they can determine who has the right to make up the quickly emptying board of directors for the conference. In the suit, both Oregon State and Washington State are hoping to go and take full control of the decision-making for the conference. At your 2020 Sports Update, we'll have more for you here on Wildcats Radio 1290.
DK on the Sports Tip on Wildcats Radio 1290. Diamondbacks download.
Baseball stuff!
D-backs continuing that stretch of 17 straight baseball games. We've been talking a lot about 9/11 and New York City. They are in New York taking on the Mets tonight at Citi Field? Citi Field? Yes, Citi Field. Jose Quintana on the mound for the Mets. Zach Davies is pitching tonight for the Diamondbacks. There was a rain delay at the beginning of this game, but they are underway now. It is in the top of the second inning with no score. Diamondbacks begin the night in third place in the National League wild card race at 75-69. They have a half-game lead over the Miami Marlins. They lead the Giants and the Reds by a game and a half. They are 2 games behind the Chicago Cubs, 3.5 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies. So as we speak right now, the Arizona Diamondbacks are in the wild card hunt. All right, let's hear from the head coach of the Arizona Wildcats, Jedd Fisch, who spoke earlier today at his weekly press conference. Some interesting stuff. Listen particularly for what he says about the decision kind of in the second half not to really play defensive back Martel Irby a whole lot.
Still a little bit disappointed on the way that game ended. We had a chance to make history. Arizona's never won on the road in the SEC. Last time they had an SEC win was 1976, and we had a chance to do that. And we were in overtime and didn't get that done. Really had a chance before overtime. I think we were probably about that far away when you look at T-Mac on the sideline with his right foot. And then I guess they said Jaden was about that far away, not getting to the line to gain. And about that far away on 3rd and 1. So unfortunately, we just didn't come away with the win. We certainly had our chances, and we were down on the 8-yard line, had a fumble. We were in spots to win that game. And but as I said after the game, I thought Mississippi State did a great job. You look at their last 15 games, they're 11-4. Their 4 losses, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and at Kentucky. So that was a very good football team we played, and we certainly went toe-to-toe. Was excited about that part of it and think that we have a chance to really build off of that game.
What do you tell Jaden in that moment when he throws 3 interceptions and things look like they're kind of getting out of hand?
But nothing's going to change. We're going to keep slinging it. We're going to keep running our offense. I've seen him play for 2 years. I've seen him practice every day. I've never seen 2 balls. One of them, the interception, the first interception bounced off of a guy's chest 4 yards forward and into linebacker's hands. I never thought I'd see that twice, but I saw it twice in the same game. And then the interception on the corner route, I thought that free safety made a phenomenal play. So Jay felt like it was the first quarter. I felt like it was the first quarter and had no concern that we were going to be able to continue to fight, and which we did. I think after that he had 3 touchdowns, 2 in the air, 1 on the ground, threw for over 300 yards, and probably had one of the better quarterback performances against Mississippi State's defense, according to their head coach.
How do you get him to not turn over the ball as much, or is it that's just he is who he is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Brett Favre, we used to say with Brett Favre that he would throw you a few of them. If you catch them, it's probably good for you, and if you don't catch them, it's probably good for them. I think that there's an aggressive mentality. There's a mindset. There's Jaden understands that, you don't turn the ball over, but I didn't see any of those throws that he made being careless or reckless. As a matter of fact, I thought that the first play, the first interception was a very, very good play by their defense. We needed to get T-Mac further over. He stopped short. We didn't get our motion right on that. We didn't motion him, and we were supposed to. The second interception, thought that was a great job by their defender. And the third interception was a great job by their safety. And the fourth one was we need to have a better route, and the ball winds up getting popped up in the air, and he probably could have scrambled.
You guys went with Borjan playing right tackle, moving Jonah back inside. How do you think he did out there against Mississippi State and just grading his performance?
He did well. There were some challenges there. That's a huge defensive line that stunts and blitzes every snap, whether they bring 5, 4, 6. It doesn't matter. They're never standing still and rushing straight. They're always going to give you a looper. So I think he handled that situation well. There was 4 or 5 plays that weren't as good as we would have liked him to be, but he's learned from it. That was his first start in a hostile environment in the SEC, and he held his own pretty good. I think we felt comfortable that if we need to continue that lineup, we certainly can. I do believe that we're getting close to Polito being back, so I would expect Jonah to go back out to right tackle this week, assuming that all things go well on the medical front.
2 questions. First one, announcers mentioned that there was some talk last season of Jaden possibly kind of tipping play calls a little bit. And did you feel that there's anything to that, or maybe he telegraphs plays a little bit, or did against Mississippi State?
No, not that I know of. We were pretty good on offense last year and this year.
And then second one, when you're grading the safeties, what is it with Gunner specifically that you see compared to other safeties?
We look at the totality of their ability to communicate, their ability to be able to, let's call it, get ourselves in the right defense, their ability to make plays away from the ball, their ability to track the ball, their ability to see the eyes of the quarterback, be close in the passing game, cover a lot of space. Gunner, IT, Dalton, they're all in their own, they're all, I would say, showing their colors in regard to Dalton has shown that he's a really good boundary safety. That's kind of where he belongs. IT has been able to go back and forth and play both field and boundary. Gunner has really been able to play star, field safety, and boundary safety. He's willing to hit. He's got great effort. He plays with great passion. He very rarely is out of place. So really, as we're looking at it, we're looking at technique, fundamentals, assignments, alignments, and then in the end, are they making the play?
So it looked like Martell got hurt late in the first half and wasn't able to come back in. Can you give an update on where he is and then where things stand with trading and Dylan Wyatt?
Yeah, Martell's healthy, good to go. We just made a change there. Not for medical reasons. We were just, in terms of the way they were lining up and in terms of some of the athletes that we had, we wanted to put DJ Warnell out there, but Martell is fine. Stukes should be cleared to go, practice on Tuesday. We're expecting him to be able to play on Saturday. Wyatt, we're expecting him to be able to play on Saturday. So as of today, my expectation is that Polito, Wyatt, Stukes, Irby not for injury purposes, but those other 3 should all be cleared to play on Saturday if they have no setbacks at Tuesday or Wednesday's practice.
Jed, so how does a player build the mental toughness to be able to put himself in a position like Jaden did with those 3 interceptions, still remain focused and bounce back what he did?
Yeah, I think that he's played quarterback his whole life. There's no question about that. He is, and he's grown up in a way that he is mentally tough. And I didn't feel a flinch from him. Now, maybe a year ago I would have. Maybe there would have been a little bit different attitude because I think it's more about trust with Jaden more than anything else. And if he believes that you believe in him, he's not going to let you down, and he's going to be in a spot where he's going to be able to go out there and play. And that's what I would expect. That's what I expected of him. There was no flinch. For him to make that throw at the end of the half, after throwing 3 interceptions, for him to lead us on a 19-play drive after 3 interceptions, is pretty remarkable in a lot of ways. I don't know if you see it everywhere, but to go out there and then to make the plays he made, to make the scrambles he made, the throw to T-Mac in the end zone for the touchdown to tie it up, all those plays were big-time ball plays that came from a big-time player.
Jed, 2 questions. Irby was playing so well early. Was there something that changed in what they were doing that you guys felt he wasn't a good fit moving forward? And then 2, how did you feel about the way your defensive end set the edge in this game against a tougher opponent?
First of all, I would say overall defensively, I thought we played very well. I thought Coach Nansen had a fantastic plan for them. I know they had 165 yards rushing. I think they had 150 or so yards or 145 yards passing. To outgain a team like that by 125 yards or 130 yards is job well done by the defense. I thought the ends did a really good job once we got through the first drive of setting the edge. They ran some wide zone plays at us early, first play of the game. They ran a little wide zone play to the boundary. Then about 4 or 5 plays later, they ran a little lead play with the tight end coming across, both of which were very good football plays. After that, I thought that really Upshaw, Ward, Davis, whoever was in at that time at the end spot, and Ty did a really good job of setting it. As for Irby, I think Irby made some great plays on the field. I think there's times that you just make substitutions like we do in all spots. And what we needed to do at that time during the game is we felt we wanted to give DJ some opportunity. And DJ did a really good job in that spot. And if we needed to move some other guys around, we feel like we have that ability to. Irby brings a certain juice to the game. Did a great job on the tackle and the punch out on the 4th down. But we need to see consistent play out of everybody down in and down out.
Can you run us through your thought process for the end of regulation? I think you got down to whatever yard that was with about 2 minutes left, had 3 timeouts, whether to try for a touchdown, field goal, etc.
Yeah, I think what happened was we had about 1:01 left. I felt like we were going to be able to, you wanted to be in field goal range. We got to field goal range. We hit a 9-yard play to get on 2nd and 10. We missed on 1st and 10. Then we missed a play on 1st and 10. So then 2nd and 10, we got a 9-yard gain with about 1:01 left. I think it was what it was, maybe 1:08 left. There was no reason with 3 timeouts the goal was to get the first down on 3rd down and then have all 3 timeouts for that final 4-play. What I would have said, we would have probably had time for about 6 plays in a minute with 3 timeouts. We didn't. Our 3rd and 1s in the game, we called 2 different 3rd and 1s. Both times they gave us coverage. One time we tried to run a sprint out. They played zone. Traditionally, they're a man blitz team. We didn't hit on that. The second time they played zone, we scrambled forward for about 20 yards, but they played a softer zone. Where we saw that we felt we could get the yard was if we went tempo. So we went tempo on the 3rd and 1 and wound up getting knocked backwards a yard. So at that point, then it was 4th and 2 with 48 seconds left or 41 seconds left in the half. And I thought the best move at that point was not to try to go for it. It was a 3-point game. We battled back. I didn't want to put our team in jeopardy and just try to start pitching the ball around on 2nd down or 1st down and put the ball up in the air for something bad to happen. So I felt like 1st and 10, we ran the play we wanted to. 2nd and 10, running the ball was the answer. 3rd down, I think we threw a screen-type play on 2nd down. And then 3rd down, I thought the timeout after we didn't get it needed to be at about 3 seconds, so they didn't have a chance to do anything.
All right, that is the head coach of the Arizona Wildcats, Jedd Fisch. You're going to be hearing from him again very shortly on the Jedd Fisch Radio Show. We're going to take you right up to that at 6:05, so we'll get a break in here, get another check of traffic and weather with cricket, and come back and tell you a little bit about high school football and went on in Week 4. This is DK on the Sports Tip. You're listening to Wildcats Radio 1290.
From the O'Reilly Chevrolet Traffic Center, it's Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together. With reported collisions, Wetmore and Flowing Wells. Prince Road and Flowing Wells also crashed from much earlier, Valencia to the east of Cold Road. And we've got that northbound closure on Camino Seco closed Escalante to Irvington for road work. 78 as our overnight low, a 25% chance of showers tomorrow, and 98 now. I'm Cricket with your Wildcats Radio 1290 traffic and weather together.
This report is sponsored by eBay Motors. You do anything to keep your vehicle happy. Let's make sure it stays running smoothly. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, the right parts are just a click away. When you see the green check.
Grayson Merrill had 6 carries for 172 yards. He ran for 2 touchdowns. How about Palo Verde beating Coronado 61-0? They had a bunch of defensive touchdowns in this game. Did the Titans. They had 2 pick sixes in the contest. They also returned a punt for a touchdown. I'm not sure if the offensive play count on this is correct, but it appears, according to the stats that were listed on Max Preps, that the Palo Verde offense ran just 14 offensive plays in this game and ended up with 61 points. So if they had 2 defensive touchdowns and a kick return touchdowns, that means that they got 40 points on offense on just 14 offensive plays. That's pretty good. Push Ridge Christian Academy knocked off Yuma 38-14. Bubba Mustaine, 17 of 22 passing, 228 yards. He threw for 3 scores. Marana losing on the road at Higley by a score of 29-24. How about Jason Wood, though, the Tigers quarterback, 419 yards passing. He was 36 of 57. And get this, he also ran the ball 18 times. So Jason Wood threw 57 passes, ran it 18 times. My U-High math is correct. That's 75 touches in the game for the quarterback. 419 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 1 score. Micah Mountain took down Sabino 49-7. Case and Colbert, 10 carries, 211 yards, 3 touchdowns for the big bruising fullback. Jimmy Leone had 4 sacks for the Thunderbolt defense. Their defense intercepted Cameron Hackworth twice in that ball game. 49-7 the final. Micah Mountain over Sabino. Also, Buena is off to a 3-0 start under Joe Thomas. The Colts knocked off the kids from my neighborhood, Catalina Foothills, 33-28. Michael Luan, 16 carries, 136 yards. Andre Bonilla, 14 carries, 121 yards rushing. He had 2 touchdowns. Simon Peter Johnson, 7 receptions for 123 yards and a score. Those were your stars, the guys that got lit on Friday night in Week 4. That's going to wrap up our program for today. Thanks to J-Dub. Thanks to Dragon Ball. Thanks to Cricket, all of our guests, Brett Farah, Lamont Hunley. Most of all, thanks to you for listening. We'll readjourn with you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. DK on the Sports Tip. I am David Kelly. You are listening to Wildcats Radio 1290.
KCUB Tucson, a Cumulus media station. This season, Jed Fish will lead the Wildcats into battle, and the only place to hear the game, Wildcats Radio 1290.
At home, down the lane.
The following is a Learfield presentation of the Arizona Sports Network.
The 1997 national champions, your Arizona Wildcats.
University.